Yo, so you guys kind of know the drill by now. Pros versus cons. Here we go again. This time around, we're going to be covering ADCs. But before we do, I do have a small announcement to do at the end. So I would appreciate it if you stay tuned till the end. But outside of that, let's get started. As a disclaimer, as usual, whenever I'm rating the different things between bad, medium, or good, I'm mainly basing it within its own tier. So I'm comparing ADCs among other ADCs. So as long as you understand that, everything should be fine. And as well, once again, for those that might not know, let's define what ADC means to me. ADC, attack damage carries. Those are characters whose main source of damage is going to be on their auto attacks, and most of them do it from a range. It's usually very consistent, unavoidable damage, and mainly single target for most of these characters. So with that being said, let's get us started. First one we got coming up, we got Aya. The different traits that we're going to be rating, it's going to be CC, range, aka or attack range, distance, how far away we're hitting people from, then our engage or burst. Have in mind, I did mention this is like consistent damage for like ADCs, so it's not, if they have a bad burst, that's not a bad thing at all. It's just some of them do have a really good burst window, and I figured it would be a good idea to mention that kind of thing if you like those bursty playstyles. And finally, mobility. Once again, first of all, starting us with Aya, we have Aya but on her AR version. Aya has also sniper and pistol, and those are play more like a mage where most of the damage and the abilities, but the AR, the assault rifle, is going to play more like an ADC. For CC, she does have some form of CC with her ult. It's really good for self-peel, but it's just only one sort of CC, so I'm going to give it a medium. Then range, she plays the average range. For engage, I do want to say it's pretty bad. If you're playing one of the other Aya versions where she has pistol skill, specifically that, she can use pistol skill to like go out after she goes in, and so she can do some cool things where she dashes in to then ult as an engage and then de-skill out if she's in trouble. But as AR, I wouldn't recommend doing such thing, so I would say her engage is overall pretty bad. Same with burst. If she was playing pistol, then she has more of a burst with ult into W, but without that, it's not gonna be that huge. And then finally, it's gonna be mid for the mobility. She has one dash. It does go over walls. It's a pretty overall middle of the pack dash. I think she's gonna be probably your baseline when you're looking at like decent mobility on ADC. But overall, she has pretty good survivability because of passive shielding, as well as her self-heal with ult and a pretty decent dash. So this is like a middle of the pack ADC as much as you can get to it. Pretty good for starting players, honestly. Next up, we're gonna go to a bit more unique one, and that is gonna be Bernice. So for Bernice, we're gonna say CC definitely good. He has traps that he can put down and get a lot of zone control. If he gets some of those final zones early, he can cause a lot of trouble for people having to come into him. Then he has his ultimate, of course. It's so strong, giving him also that good engage that he can just ult someone on spot, and they have to be careful, they have to respect it. He can ult someone and then put a trap below them, right? And then all those traps also reduce his ultimate cooldown, so it's just more and more and more CC. His range though, terrible. He's pretty much more melee than a melee character. This is the one like ADC that's like melee range pretty much, because of how he works with like having a shotgun or whatever. He does have a mid for burst because once again, on that ult into trap, into a lot of damage, he could potentially burst someone down on that window. And then mobility, I do have it as bad. He's really bad at running away, and if he's running at someone, he has a movement speed increase, but it's not like anything super amazing. So I do want to say he's on the really bad end for mobility. Still, Bernice, very solid character, very played, especially in competitive or with teams that really like that bursty engage. He's one of the best options when you want an engage on your ADC. Next up, we have Chloe, and now we have another middle of the pack, but it has a little bit more on a few parts. First, looking at CC, we have medium. Chloe has a lot of slows. We're using Nina around, as well as that one knock up that she can use to kind of engage. That's why I give her a mid. She can technically look for picks with an engage with the W, get a good knock up into a slow, could potentially get someone, but nothing super amazing, not much better than Aya there. Next, range, still mid. Burst, not really bursty character. And mobility, I would say it's slightly worse than Aya. I feel like her dash feels a little bit slower, but because she does have slows to self-heal herself, it's usually fine. Also, if she has her ult, that just won't let her die for a bit, so you know it will be fine. So she definitely does still have that survivability. She's a little bit weirder to play because you do have to like kind of move your Dole around. So if you do like that gameplay of having to control your Dole, you can technically do some really cool things with it. But overall, she's just another auto attacker. A lot of these characters are overall pretty simple to play. Next up, we got Hart, who actually I rated CC as good, but Charm did just receive a big nerf in preseason. We will see if they will keep that change or not, but Charm pretty much, instead of being a regular Charm that was a hard CC, it became a not hard CC. They changed it from a hard CC to a 99% slow, which is a really big nerf. So outside of losing Charm, Hart technically still has her ult, which can be really good or really bad depending on how you use it. So it's definitely one of those ults that you gotta be really careful with and really master it. But I do want to consider it some sort of CC. I could honestly put the CC in medium if the change stays for Charm, which they might probably keep it. But just have that in mind. Outside of that, range mid. I would say her range is lower than the average, but still medium. As well as engage mid. Of course, she can dash in, she can charm someone, but once again, charm is weaker, so it's just gonna be a mid. It's not gonna be an amazing engage. For burst, if she goes in on any of those engages, she does have that W that will boost her damage, so she does have quite a big burst window. A lot of people don't really pay that much attention with Hart, where she's actually like glowing and has like that extra damage, but it is important. And mobility, I do want to say Hart is one of those characters that has so much mobility with her triple dash. There's so many things that she can do, and she is really annoying to deal with because of that. Next up, we got Isol. Isol, honestly, I kind of want to rate it. It's AR, another AR character, not the pistol version. Pistol version is more like a mage. Pretty similar to AR Aya, I would say. The only thing here that I changed is the engage being on mid rather than bad, and the mobility being bad rather than mid. The reason for these is pretty much Isol's biggest trade-off compared to Aya is that he does a bit more damage. Whenever he Ws people, he gets to defense shred them, so he provides some utility to his team by making the enemies take more damage. So he can output more damage and has a bit more soul control with his traps, as well as has a bit more engage with that Q route that he can go for. But overall, his mobility is a lot worse. His dash is a lot shorter, and it does have invisibility, but invisibility, someone can put a camera down and then you're revealed and it doesn't matter. You just have a short dash that can't go over walls. So because of that, he has a lot harder time surviving at the cost of having that extra zone control, extra Q engage, and extra damage. So it's a give and take. Next up, we got Jenny. With Jenny, we have honestly pretty good stats here from what we look here. Pretty much mostly mid. She has some pushing around. She has some charm with the ult. Honestly, CC could even be good if you really like play and min-max it. She can get to be really annoying and do really good things with her team. I would say if she has no other setup, then I would say it's mid. But if she has other people that are helping her set up her CC, she can definitely be up there with the good. But outside of that, range mid, I would say it's a pixel character, so it's slightly under average but still pretty good. Then engage, she can go in with D skill or like with dashing in or blinking in and then ulting and having some sort of an engage but nothing amazing, or look for like cool carpets to bring the hook kind of the enemy in. So she has some stuff there, she has some options, but you really have to get fancy with it. And then burst, similarly, if you do get people with your ult and you charm them all and you do a lot of damage, you technically have a little bit of a burst window, but it's nothing super crazy. And your ability, I want to say it's overall pretty good. Having D skill, having extra movement speed whenever you're in your purple form, as well as overall she's just a pretty speedy character, so she moves pretty fast. All right, moving on, we have Katja, the season 3 hero. So many people started picking up the game and just playing the game for this character. She is the woe when it comes to CC. She's actually terrible at it. She has literally nothing for CC outside of like one slow on your Cypher's kill. But she doesn't need it because she is the queen of range. She can hit you from a mile away. Maybe not as far as Eva can with her laser, but with auto attacks and guaranteed damage, she can hit you pretty hard from pretty far. Once again, she has no CC, so engaging is not gonna be good, and she's a lot about poking rather than bursting. She does technically have a bit of like auto resets and auto enhancements, so she technically can burst you down because she hits like a truck, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily because of her kit. She just hits really hard, so your HP will melt more than like, I don't know if I can call that a burst, you know what I mean? Outside of that, mobility mid, she does have that E. The one thing about her mobility being mid is like, well, she does get like good distance when she like gets knocked back after using her E. If you're trying to chase her down, if you're like a Jackie or something, and she tries to E away, the E is an actual projectile that's gonna slow you down so you don't chase her. So you can technically dodge that, and like, yeah, she's still gonna like get pushed back away from you, but if you don't get slowed, you can honestly catch up to her, right? And then like she doesn't have anything else other than like flash, so like electric shift. But this character is really good. She hits really hard. She is, honestly, as long as you can space away from the enemy and play to your max range, which is your strength on the character, this character is amazing. And I do really love her. She really reinforces the ADC fundamentals. Next up, we got Martina. This is a bit of a weird character because of her whole passive that I've explained in one of my few other videos. They've made it so far so that you don't need as many passive sacks so that to get transformed. But overall, she still has that little mini game. And outside of that, she's still really capable ADC. They are really good in terms of CC. She has a lot of camera stuff that can put down and slow people down. She has that blind on her D skill. She then has her ult, which can be a really big cone, like stun, right? So like she does have good CC overall, even though sometimes it might get a little bit, it might be a little underrated, honestly. Next range, it's like mid engage. She has that big ult, so she technically can engage, definitely. I would say, honestly, could even be a good if it wasn't because it's like pretty telegraphic. So like people should dodge it, but sometimes it just hits you, you know? Burst, once again, if she gets that engage in, she can technically burst you down, even if her kit doesn't really have anything that like particularly boosts like her damage through like any period of time. And then mobility, honestly, I put mid. It could honestly be bad, but she does get a lot of movement speed increases with a lot of her kit. Even if her dash is a bit of a joke because it like dashes you and then it makes you come back. So while her dash is a bit of a joke, because of the movement speed increases and so many slows that makes her so slippery, I want to say her mobility is still in the medium, but you can make the argument for it to be bad. Next up, we got Nadine. I wouldn't say her CC is bad. She does get a little bit of zone control because of her traps, but I wouldn't say that particularly makes her CC any better. For range, I do want to say it's good. There is the Nadines that, you know, build to like hit really hard with her Q, almost making her a bit more towards a mage that pokes from afar, but she still blasts you with her autos. She still has that burst window with her ult, and once again, no CC, so no engage. And finally, mobility, she has one dash. The advantage on Nadine's dash is that she can put it down and like not take it immediately, but at the same time, they know where you're gonna go in a way if you do take it, so it's a bit of a mind game in a way sometimes, so it all depends, but it is a pretty good dash overall. Next, we got Rio. CC, pretty bad, although her ult can be a pretty strong CC, her long form ult. Talking about long form, she does have pretty good range, I would say. Whether she's playing short bow or long bow, she does have more range than other people, generally speaking, and can poke with it. Her engage, good. If she does a longbow arrow, she can definitely have a pretty good engage, even though sometimes it can be easy to dodge. It definitely exists. And then for burst, she doesn't really have anything for burst itself, so I wouldn't say it's bad, and has a pretty decent mobility. I will take her dash cooldown, it's pretty short if I remember correctly, so maybe even better than mid, but she doesn't really have much more other than mobility, other than movement speed increases on short bow, slowing you down, which I guess is the more important thing, and on top of that, dashes. So I would say she's really good at kiting you, if anything, rather than mobility itself, or like overall mobility. She's really good at kiting, especially on short bow. Next up, talking about kiting, we got Rozzi, who is a very polarizing ADC. She has a pretty low range, so not Bernice level, but she still has very little range. She plays very, very close, very differently, and it's one of those ADCs that relies a little bit more on her abilities, because she needs to use abilities to have her autos be doubled, right? So once she has a very rested C overall, she has like one tiny interrupt and that's about it, and slow. Very bad engage, but she has a really good burst with her ult, can do a lot of damage, and has really good mobility. She can kite you for days, she can dash around, she can move around, she has pistol skill, she can move a lot. But unfortunately, because of her range, she can be a little awkward to play sometimes, and she can get blown up pretty easily, even though she does have an immune, because you do have to be hitting people or target people with a lot of her abilities for them to work. That being said, looking at our next one, which is the exact same, Tsubame. This is another ADC that's honestly kind of a queen of 1v1s. The thing with Tsubame though is whenever you're watching this video, they did talk about in the dev stream about reworking her. Apparently her design is not very healthy for the game. They are thinking about making her. She has infinite mobility. She can go inbound. She can go like move it around. Like this character is really, really strong. You do kind of need to know what you're doing on her because once again, you have pretty short range and you need to take your decisions well. But this character is very good. Don't let anybody else tell you otherwise. But it might get reworked. So whenever you're watching this video, just have that in mind. Maybe this character is completely different. And last but not least, we got William, who is our other character aside from Katja, who has good range. I guess I did also put Rio and Nadine, but with William and Katja is a little bit more straightforward because they actually just hit you from like a million range for fun. Like he just has infinite like fucking throw range, and when he W's and stands on the W, he just more and more and more. Like it's just so much attack range. He does have CC. I put mid because of his engage with his ult as well as his W, and he has smoke bomb which completely blinds you, which I consider it almost CC because whenever you get tossed into smoke bomb, your brain shuts down and then you can't do anything. So it's honestly the strongest CC in the game. Outside of that, he just hits you from a million range apart and hits like a truck, so that's good. He can engage with his ult and just dash around kind of like a Shuichi, but he's doing it from range and pushing you around, and he can kite you like that. So he definitely does have a good burst with that, and his Qs whenever he activates and starts attacking you at Mach 10. But the one thing with mobility is that he can only move to his balls, and he doesn't really have any particular dash outside of dashing to the balls. Unless he's like running flash, right, which he usually is. So I want to say his mobility is bad, and if it's not bad just on the sense that like his dash doesn't have that much range and he has to use it to a ball, so it's telegraph, then I don't know what to say. Yeah, I want to say it's definitely bad. It's pretty much only guaranteed for mobility. It's gonna be his ult, but it is generally speaking pretty easy to deal with William in the sense of his mobility is pretty bad. So if you get to him, he will struggle. He does have some self-healing tools, and he will try to kite you and do things, but overall he should try to be at a safe range and ability move around enough to where you don't hit him. His mobility also is technically RNG because he doesn't really pick where his balls land. It's not like Draven from League. It is very pseudo RNG on where those go. So you might end up dashing towards an enemy team accidentally just because that's where the ball landed and it's the only place you could go. With that being said though, those were our ADCs. I know the video ended up a little bit longer than I expected it to be, but I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be making videos again. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, I did mention I had an announcement for you guys, and here it is. I've been slowly remaking the Discord and giving people more roles. I want to start running polls and figuring out what you guys want for me to be posting content. So at the same time I'm releasing this video, I'm releasing my first poll with the first question, which is which video series do you want to see more of? Do you want to see more pros and cons? Do you want to see more how to X character, or maybe a mix of both? Go into my Discord, get the poll roll, and vote on it to let me know what exactly is that you want to see. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Once again, if you find anything you like, do like the video and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next time. Bye bye.